Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Read the Epilogue of the very epic Athenaeum Tabletop campaign. As you can see, I have a few other people on my side of the screen. So, fortunately, I was very blessed to have 3 of the 5 Athenaeum players hanging out with us over the weekend. We wish, of course, that Joe and Thistle were able to make it, but we know that they are here with us in spirit as we commemorate the finale of our campaign. It's been more than a year.
Wow. That's great.
It's
a fun ride.
Right?
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah. We'll talk about more stuff if we want about our weekend on the vlog, because we'll have one extra vlog for this after we read that Epilogue. But let's dive right into the ending of our characters for now. So as I explained to all of the players, the Epilogue has been divided up into different parts, and each player has their own part to read. So without further ado, go ahead and take your document. And it looks like we're starting with Alex. So.
Oh. Okay. After tying up the final loose ends in their respective worlds, our heroes could finally relax and retire from this massive adventure. Before them was an opportunity given to only a select few people. The freedom of not just what one universe had to offer them, but multiple universes. They had the ability to freely jump from one world to another as they pleased, calling as many of them as they would like home. This wasn't a goodbye for any of them, only the beginning of infinite possibilities. And with the mysterious library, their library, as their central hub and base of operations, you can only imagine what sort of grand adventures they will have as they continue to tell their collaborative, conjoined stories.
Lonic. While the vast majority of our heroes were running their errands across their worlds, Lonic and Bee were kept busy trying to free his friends from the oppressive nature of his video game world. Their missions led them through a wide variety of new subworlds, ranging from an edutainment level, an RTS or real-time strategy level, a charming rhythm level called Harmonica Hero, Pants Prance Revolution, and even a building called Swinecraft, where you play as a little pig trying to construct objects out of straw, sticks, and bricks. During this adventure, Bee and Lonic became very close. Total BFFs, or BLFs, Bee and Lonic forever. With Bee's innocence and positive nature, she was able to keep the team's morale high through it all. In the end, Lonic's final colored pearls were extracted from his body. In doing so, he and Bee succeeded in disconnecting the gaming world from users, freeing his friends to make their own decisions and choose their own paths from here on out. After reuniting with his sweetheart, Sous Vide, the two exchanged notes immediately over dinner by having their very first date in Gourmet City. Lonic would follow Sous Vide wherever they went. At long last, he had found his princess, who was not only in another castle, but was in another world entirely.
Reginald/Black Powder. Reginald decided to stay in Frankie's world while Taylor went back to Sealy Court City to attend to her affairs prior to her big move. With his experience as a leader, Reginald assisted the resistance in taking out any remaining Kerwin supporters, becoming a rather respected leader within them. He was even offered a position in what would eventually be the new revamped military. Having had enough of violent life, Reginald refused and, along with Taylor, moved out to Florida, where they built a seaside house to live in. Reginald never stopped supporting Taylor in her singing career, and would even get in contact with the Speller to get some of the sensory ointments so that he could hear her perform on occasion. Knowing she could make a difference in the hearts of others, he encouraged her to sing and spread her music and joy to the world that had long been suffering from war. Despite his original plan to retire and live a rather carefree life, seeing the effects of the war on this world, as well as staying in a much younger and more able body, Reginald decided to use his own experience to help those most affected, the children. With help from Taylor, Henry, Felix, and others, Reginald opened the Home and School for Affected Children. This was an orphanage for the children and youths who lost their homes and parents to the war and bigotry. Knowing how easily such an establishment can fall, he reached out to Eddie Sullivan and Susan to get word out in order to bring in volunteers for both caretaking and education. In addition, their articles encouraged others to aid in the program's funding. These efforts ensured that the children would not only grow up in comfort, experiencing care and affection, but also receive an education that was not focused on becoming a soldier. Between running the orphanage and supporting Taylor in her musical career, Reginald spent most of his free time sailing on a small sailboat that he and Taylor had built just for them, Freedom's Course. Roughly 2 years after settling down in Florida with Taylor, the two of them welcomed their first child into the world, a young Medusa who they named Kima. Another year later, Reginald and Taylor would get married while Taylor is pregnant with twins, who they name Isabella and Sophia. Reginald also manages to stay in contact with Jim, ensuring that he and his mother are well taken care of. While they are never able to grow close due to Reginald's past actions, the two do gain a distant respect and understanding. Of course, Reginald stayed in contact with the rest of the Athenaeum crew, making sure they all knew they were welcome at his home at any time, and was always happy to cook alongside Sous Vide. While he does so rarely due to his commitments with the home and his family, Reginald makes sure to keep tabs on his friends. His primary concern is to always make sure they remain safe, knowing that he is always happy to have them come seek for his assistance. In agreement with Taylor, he also asked Frankie and Star to be the godparents of their children, while also requesting that Sam, Tori, and Sous Vide play a part in their children's lives. Otherwise, Reginald continues to live a simple and mostly lawful life with Taylor and his children. He takes pride in the establishment he created and with the connections he has made with those around him. After the birth of the twins, Reginald and Taylor do discuss if they want any more children and are currently undecided, happy to simply live their lives.
Clematis Field / Star. After the battle in Frankie's world, Star and Stormy stayed behind to help them get things organized before returning to their own world. Inspired by the changes they saw in Frankie's world, once home, Star began a campaign to have him nominated as the next president. Star knew this wouldn't be an easy battle, but kicked things off. They put on a huge benefit concert to help the Bloomingdale orphanage. Meanwhile, Stormy conducted deals for Star's campaign and created alliances. After reaching out to Beyonce and offering her a deal she could not refuse, if Beyonce supported them in their candidacy for president, they would help her become the megastar she always wanted to be. Beyonce answered, "You want me, don't you?" To which Star's response was, "Snap, no, queen." Focus. Beyonce accepted the deal with a fine, you win, sure, why not? Okay. During one of the debates, Star talked about how music is magic and how magic as well as music are both precious. He also pointed out to the opposition and the depression those born with this talent face on a daily basis. Star's opponent put up a good argument about how being born with magic and music are dangerous. This led to Star revealing that they are one of these magical beings. Stormy was shocked that Star revealed their secret, while the rest of the world was incredibly shocked to know that one of the biggest celebrities in the world was also blessed with music and magic. A huge smear campaign started soon after Star revealed their truths about themselves. Luckily, Stormy is quite the negotiator. With the alliances he had already created, and the deals he put in place, they were able to turn the negative narrative into a positive. The tide was turned by showcasing how generous, kind, loving, and supportive Star is, not only to those he/they are they're close to, but also Star's hundreds of thousands of fans, including the Bloomingdale Orphanage. From the Bloomingdale Orphanage, Lady Matilda and Shepard were the loudest voices. The momentum gain led to more artists coming forward about their music and magical talents, giving Star's campaign more fuel. It was a very close race, but Star in the end was victorious. He became the first pixie and magical being to become president, or at least openly magical beings. It certainly wasn't an easy transition from musical idol to president, but Star was able to make it work. He accomplished great gains in the area of equality for all and the laws surrounding magical beings. Even with all that going on, Star took time out for their husband, their family, and their extended family. They ensured that Sam, Bee, Black Powder, Frankie, Tori, and Lonic were all taken care of, as well as looked after. Black Powder offered Star the opportunity to become a pixie godfather to his newly born child, with Taylor. And of course, Star said yes. Star continues to lead the nation of Cerulean as president, and has even found time to stay in adventures with their friends. Star continues to develop their talents, with Obsidian having the ability to read and see auras. Star and Stormy revealed their marriage by renewing their wedding vows on their 5th wedding anniversary.
Frankie. Establishing a new order in Frankie's world was the next item for business, and this was definitely something that he was neither qualified nor really interested in working on. Therefore, while the others, Victor, Henry, etc., spent weeks on the planning phase of restoring peace, Frankie focused inward on finding peace with his other memories. Practicing some of the meditation techniques that Star had taught him, and utilizing sonic body control training from Chris, which is another set of memories, Frankie was able to fully integrate all 6 memory sets. In addition to Ethan's mimicry powers, Frankie learned other sonic abilities in varying degrees of power and skill from the others, such as combat teleportation from Jill, clairvoyance from Claire, obviously, electrokinesis from Leon, and telepathy from Ada. As the restoration plans were finalized and Frankie's sense of self was more balanced, Frankie felt even more determined to travel with Victor to the worlds he had visited previously. He insisted that this escape from their world would be a good way for their relationship to grow and flourish outside of the world that was written for them. He no longer doubted himself and the changes he had undergone during his travels, but he still wondered if Victor would change and feared the manner in which he did. This voyage would be a test for them, a new challenge, and exciting possibilities. They jumped into Star's world first to visit their old pals, and Victor experienced life there as a deer or stag. It was a horny good time for the pair. After that, they went to Tori's world. Yes, even there, where Victor took on the archetype of the new foreign exchange student from the island of Mypos. Excuse me. You can certainly bet that Frankie found Victor's new accent here particularly alluring. Needless to say, they had a scary fun time in this world. Victor couldn't get enough of Frankie, and it opened up a whole new experimental side to their relationship, as long as they could stay alive at least. Which eventually led to the couple deciding to leave Tori's world and jump into Sam's world, where they tangoed and jazzed to their heart's desires. A lot, and a lot of jazz. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
You know what?
I'm sure they stayed there for a very long time. Afterwards, they settled in Black Powder's world. It was here that they decided to relax and sail their ways and nights away. They procured a smaller vessel than the one that BP owned, one that could be easily sailed with a very small crew of misfits. Oh, and I should also mention that Frankie's possessed coat rack remained their loyal companion throughout it all too. After so many adventures with just the two of them, Victor realized how little he actually knew of their reality and existence. He understood Frankie's initial self-doubt and why someone like him, someone that was created with so many other memories inside his head, would question everything he knew. What was clear now more than ever was that the love that was written for them, that inexplicable bond they had, it was stronger and deeper than before. Perhaps their initial intimacy, devotion, and passion was written for them to kickstart this journey. Something at first seemingly uncontrollable, the desire to be together. However, these past few months have developed something deeper between them. They truly are committed to each other, equal partners, something unsaid, they just knew. They're no longer two, they're one. A love that had awakened, not forsaken, and retaken into a whole new level of existence.
Tori Barnes. Tori does decide to use the legendary golden extra life to resurrect herself back from the dead. Like a true miracle, it works like a charm, the way the Todd said it would. Life for Tori before and during her times in the Athenaeum library was never the normal type of life for most teenagers. But normal was never really Tori's speed anyway. After the conclusion of their adventures, Tori spent a good deal of time in Frankie's world, building upon her relationships with both Henry and Felix. Polyamory was a new thing for this unlikely trio, and it did not come without some bumps in the road. But Henry and Felix showed a lot of patience in navigating these new and unexplored waters together. One thing was never put into question, her love she shares for both. And that love only grows as they spend more time together. Perhaps there could be an engagement someday in this love double helix, which, by the way, is indeed a mashup of Henry and Felix.
Henry and Felix. It's double helix. I was like, I didn't catch that until now. I was like, wait.
It wrote itself.
It did. In order to remember those that were lost in the war, Tori recruited Frankie, Reginald, and Henry and Felix to put together a peace memorial for all the lives that were lost and sacrificed in the war. This included a special dedication to Agatha and Ethan to honor their memories. With Reginald spending his time in Frankie's world, she made an effort to go visit him in Florida, bringing her dolls, of course, to come and play with Reginald and Taylor's children. She also brought her father's famous blackberry pie recipe for her and Reginald to make together. Ultimately, Tori still had a life back in her own world with her family, especially with Carmen doing a healthy mix of mystery ghost adventures with the Scooty Poo gang and girly girl activities with their sister. Tori successfully graduated from high school and started pursuing a degree in business administration at the local university.
In Yale or Harvard? I didn't know what to put down. Was it Yale or Harvard?
Say Harvard.
Harvard. She ended up in Harvard, everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I support this.
Everything she learns in her business classes, she applies to Carmen's booming and successful Phantom Smasher business. It is so successful that Carmen and Tori decided to turn it into a multi-world franchise, and the Scooty Poo gang decided to join in on the adventure. Starting in Frankie's world, Tori recruited Henry's hacker/techie skills combined with Felix's skills, in which they were able to develop and create additional neuron pads to keep up with the increasing demand. In Sous Vide's world, Tori would help Sous Vide in fighting whatever food monster of the week was in town before sampling all of Sous Vide's latest recipes. Tori made sure to savor every bite and never took a meal for granted. In Star's world, the Barnes sisters take full advantage of their time with Star, going shopping, getting their nails done with facials, and rocking out at the Psycho Murder Unicorn concert. Next up was Sam's world, and Tori couldn't have been more excited to spend some quality time with Sam, as was Carmen. Even if that was during visitation hours at the jail. Finally, she visited Reginald's world, where she couldn't help but prank some of the people on the ship crew one last time in Frankie and Victor's small vessel. When all was said and done, each member of the Scooty Poo gang became a franchisee for each of the worlds, which is as follows. Scruffy ended up going to Sous Vide's world. Wilma went to Frankie's world. Scooty Poo went to Star's world. Debbie went to Sam's world. And Ted, of course, went to BP's world. And then you're probably wondering, what about Tori's dolls? Well, Tori's dolls will always be a big part of Tori's life. They were her friends, but she doesn't overly rely on them for comfort anymore, as she's no longer afraid of being alone. But with the help of her dad, he built an exact replica of the Athenaeum dollhouse, as Tori described it to him, where the dolls can live and play peacefully for the rest of eternity.
Aww, so cute.
Sam Bennett. The library was as silent as an old graveyard after the deepest winter storm. The kids were on adventures like 10-year-olds discovering the playground for the first time after school. Reginald exploring a fit for Taylor and the crazy youth-filled remnants of the world Frankie lived for so long. As for me, I'm prepping to spend my year in the clink like a ham in a tin. After all, I said I would. Once I'm done serving my time in the lockup, I've got a few things to do. Using my new tech from Frankie's world, I take opportunities to dig into mysteries to find answers in the worlds I can access. In Gourmet City, I silently watch for where the villain of the week's lair is, exploring what the forces are that assembles, supplies, preps, and emboldens them. Is there a layer of mastermind behind the seemingly contrived master of food mayhem? In Frankie's world, I watch to make sure the tyrannical government and those who support it are exposed and face justice, looking for holdouts and supporters like gin runners in their ilk. I know them, and I'll make sure they can't hurt kids again. In Star's world, I avoid the imps, though I do like to get into the clubs they play to hear their sweet jazz, making me feel back home as if the craziness is all a product of magic. Silently putting up Star for President signs and spray painting "Let the Music Play" on walls about the city in the still of the night. I want to see the changes that acceptance and expression can bring. In Tori's world, I search for the history of both Maldavere Manor as well as Lady Maldavere herself. What further secrets do they both have? And is there a connection from the spiritual and physical realities? Attempting to avoid Carmen to not lead on anything with a gal that seems more like a niece.
We don't want him to end up in jail again. We don't want him to end up in jail again.
I don't need that sentence extended. In Reginald's world, I look for opportunities to help others find justice, making sure the corruption of classism is fought with the staunch will to live from those under the boot, leaving documents of fair trials, wealth of cooperative ventures, and plans for industrialization to benefit all. I leave the main of the library as is, as guests are always welcome. It's great to have everyone for a regular meal, drink, or talk, but in my room, a corkboard now hangs on the wall. Papers, images, and red string dominate a jigsaw puzzle of these worlds, with a single thread leading up to a card simply labeled Athenaeum Reality.
Interesting. The world of horror. Immediately after their first major adventure together, our heroes do celebrate with a giant pool party back in Tori's world. All major players who helped in the final battle against her when were invited. It took place in Scruffy and Scooty Poo's place since, as surprising as it may be for some, their parents were loaded and had a huge house. Much fun and revelry was had, similar to when they all came together in the library just before the final battle. Though it was easy for people to get lost in the halls of the massive house as people kept trying to split up while inside. Frankie convinces a very drunk Ted to have a dance with him and his possessed coat rack, much to Debbie's chagrin. Dr. Theodore acted as the bouncer, making sure that the lights of Pio didn't set foot in the party, even though he tried to sneak in twice. When he wasn't being called on by the Phantom Smashers to help out as extra muscle, Dr. Theodore became a freelance landscaper for Tori's town. He did get a lot of business due to his still creepy demeanor and practically non-existent communication skills. But those who were brave enough to hire him were rewarded with excellent lawn care expertise for very cheap. He didn't need to eat, sleep, or have a roof over his head, so Dr. Theodore didn't really care how little business he had. He just needed something to do to pass the time between phantom smashing and visits from his beloved star.
Amazing.
Lord.
Tori is awakened in the middle of the night one day to the sound of children playing in her backyard. She and Carmen very cautiously investigate, only to find that their backyard had suddenly grown a small cornfield, despite them never planting any corn back there. And right in the center of the mini cornfield were Thursday and Pigsley. The kids said that they had been looking for Tori since they wanted to play with her again. Well, Pigsley seemed more eager to play again, that is. Thursday still seemed as indifferent as ever. Hesitantly, they played a simple game that Pigsley called Lacerate the Tail Off the Donkey.
Oh my god. Ark.
That was amazing.
It's very Addams Family.
Yes.
It's the opposite of what you would.
Yes. Of course Pigsley thought of it.
Of course.
The opposite.
But afterwards, Carmen came up with the bright idea of taking the kids to the Atoll of Whispers back in Black Powder's world. Such a place filled with curses and lethally dangerous creatures to play with seemed right up these kids' alley. Surely something that would entertain even the lights of Thursday. Plus, it would ensure that the treasure of the atoll would be well protected by the kids. This place did pique Thursday's curiosity and agreed to check the place out. Sure enough, the kids instantly loved the place, chuckling at themselves when they switched the heads on their bodies. They decided to stay. If our heroes ever needed to torment anyone in the near future, Pigsley and Thursday were ready to provide their creepy and disturbing services.
That's amazing. Okay. The world of superheroes. Sous Vide returned back to Gourmet City with a new vigor and spirit within them. Regaining their sense of taste propels them forward in the culinary classes, and they ended up graduating with top honors. They were also able to ease back from the weekly responsibilities of saving Gourmet City from the latest monster attack, thanks to the help of some unexpected new friends, but more on that later. Having more time on their hands because of this, Sous Vide works ambitiously to start up their first of many restaurants. Thanks to the seed money from Black Powder and the Atoll of Whispers treasure, they transformed the top of the giant Illuminati pyramid into a beautiful, sky-high rotating restaurant with a gorgeous view of the city. A restaurant simply called Sensational. They had the crow feathers that Sam gifted them framed, and it's now hanging on the wall of their main office of the restaurant. In Sensational's grand opening, they unveiled a number of signature dishes. Tori's bitter bread dollhouse, a savory, more elevated version of a gingerbread house, Sam's spicy monologue, a jelly roll filled with a flavorful spiced filling, Star's sour kidnapped kebabs, grilled kebabs with a special sour glaze that can knock you out flat, Reggie's sweet grenade of many things, a hollow chocolate grenade shell that contains a random prize inside, Frankie's salty slut balls. Oh, damn it. Meatball made from the grinder that are perfectly seasoned to make you desire more, and Lonix Boozy Coffee. When you want to go fast with a kick from your flask, try Lonix Boozy Coffee. The restaurant is an instant success with patrons from all over the world coming into Gourmet City just to experience the good food, impeccable service, and gorgeous views. Sous Vide is able to make more than enough money to pay back Black Powder many times over. They were finally able to prove to themselves what they can accomplish thanks to the help of their friends.
That was fabulous.
Yes, it was.
The world of sci-fi. With Kerwin gone, the platform of his followers started to collapse. This was deeply aided by Eddie Sullivan and Susan Simmons' very compelling propaganda, helping to turn the tide of public opinion across the country against the corrupted government. More and more people are outraged at what their country had become, and they wanted a better future for their children immediately. A new revolution had begun, but it would take years for the country to establish new laws and policies to prevent these tragedies from repeating itself ever again, at least not to this extreme. New leaders will rise, moving the country forward as it heals from its wounds, but the brave heroes they lost. After taking down Kerwin and the mind control device, Felix had the closure he needed to move on after the tragic death of his twin sister. Losing a sibling you were so close to is an incredibly difficult event to recover from, and that is only compounded by the connection you share with a psionic twin. But Tori's affection and presence helps deeply, and Felix will continue to visit Agatha's memorial over the years whenever he feels the need to seek guidance from her. Felix will become the leader of the new revamped military, one that will respect psychics and non-psychic members alike. Like Felix, Henry will continue pursuing a deep loving relationship with Tori. Although him and Felix will never fully become total BFS, they will gradually develop a sustainable enough friendship that would still maintain their very complicated love helix. Henry will retire from life as a soldier and instead open up his very own Kung Fu pizza shop in honor of his dear friend Ethan. This will become a very popular hangout spot for our heroes whenever they decide to visit. Victor remains devoted and true to Frankie, and after settling in Black Powder's world, he becomes one of the most influential inventors to date. But he is very careful about not introducing too much technology at once to a world that simply isn't ready for all of it yet. After all, he doesn't want a repeat of what happened in his own world for sure.
The world of pirate fantasy. Jim returns back home with enough gold in his pockets to help his ailing mother. Fortunately, she eventually will make a full recovery, leaving Jim with the freedom to live his life however he sees fit. Jim will be a major help assimilating Frankie and Victor once they decide to fully settle there. One of Victor's first inventions, while making themselves established there, was a giant laser pointer that they used to befriend the Catkin, to help pull his and Frankie's sailing vessel across the sea. With their newly made feline companion, the two of them could travel around the world more efficiently than ever before without a full crew. A crew that includes their new comrade and first mate, Jim. When Carmen and Tori arrive in Black Powder's world to take Thursday and Pigsley to the Atoll of Whispers, they enlist Gregor and his crew to sail him there. At first, Gregor was incredibly resistant, for it was bad luck enough to have one woman on the ship, much less two women. Well, two women plus whatever the heck Thursday was. Fortunately, the strength of greed in this world was much stronger than the fear of curses, as Carmen and Tori promised to give them a stash of the atoll's treasure, which Gregor still didn't know the location of. Turns out, Thursday and Piggly were natural curse magnets. So much so that all of the bad luck that would have befallen the ship funneled instead into them and not the crew, making their trip to the atoll free of any major complications. Also, it should go without saying that Gregor had 100% intention of betraying Carmen and Tori once he had his hands on the treasure. And quite frankly, Tori knew that too. But after spending 6 weeks on the ship traveling to the atoll, Carmen and Gregor, oh no, started bonding rather closely. It was gradual at first, but Carmen's upbeat nature seemed to melt through Gregor's broody shell. It also didn't hurt that Carmen had recently dyed her hair red, since she mentioned to Regina about how much she wanted to try being a ginger for a spell. Tori caught them making out near the back of the ship about 5 weeks in. Carmen would visit Gregor over the next few months until Gregor eventually decides to move into Tori's world indefinitely. He arrives just in time for Halloween, and he didn't even have to buy a costume. Carmen takes him trick-or-treating for the first time. She was dressed as a beautiful pink mermaid, and Gregor fell instantly in love with candy. As for Redcap, he mysteriously disappeared and was never heard from again by our heroes. At least for now.
World of Romance. Lady Matilda is immensely proud of Star's rise to presidency. The orphanage of Bloomingdale's had a much bright future ahead of them, thanks to his influence on the world. Shepard serves as the head of Star Security. This does not sound good. which means he's always busy. If you think of musical Idol, Star was the target of many kidnappings. You can't imagine how many attempts for kidnapping there would be for President Star. But at least it means Shepard would get to spend a lot of time with Star during his term. The Chromatics would enjoy an extended successful career ahead of them. They became widely popular around the world, selling albums after album. Their best-selling album, Melt My Biscuits. You know what? Amen. Amen.
Somebody needs to write that. I want a song called Melt My Biscuits.
Melt My Biscuits. Okay. Was the top of the charts for weeks. It was a mega collaboration between the Chromatics and Broken Oath. During an interview, people would ask who or what the inspiration for such a song, and they would be very tight-lipped about it. But you and I know who. Of course, they're always glad to see Sam whenever he comes to visit Sealy Court City. Seems like whenever he does, they produce another hit. I love it. Sam is their muse. Yes. Beyonce would also become a household name, as Star promised. The one could argue that this was more due to infamy rather than fame. She became a typical spoiled and entitled celebrity, like one would suspect. But after she got bored with performing in concerts all the time, Beyonce eventually became one of the judges for the rival musical Idol alongside Sandy Jackson, Simon Cowbell, and Paula Abmule. Okay, Abmule. Taylor Swift is known as the Queen of Country in Frankie's world, and her music would be remembered as a classic for generations to come. The high of her musical accolades would never compare to the love she held in her heart for dear Reginald. And as for Stormy Rain, he and his husband would naturally do what we know they do best, spinning all that jazz. Spinning all that jazz wherever they went. Oh my God.
The World of Mystery. Miles Haskell continues to serve his city as a police detective, and after several years, he eventually becomes the new commissioner. Meanwhile, Belinda manages to get over Joey Rattlesnake Ratello shortly after Sam's court case. That seemed pretty obvious when Belinda is caught with Father Ezekiel in the back room of a bar. He was baptizing her with his holy water, if you know what I mean. Oh, the scandal that ensued. Eddie Sullivan and Susan Simmons became a power couple in the journalism field. Their investigative reporting helped expose conspiracies and injustices all around the country. Their breakout article was a piece they wrote on psionics in Montana, which, if you remember, Frankie told Eddie he was from. Their contributions to society, and even across other worlds, were immeasurable. They would eventually become engaged and invite all our heroes to the weddings. With Sam as Eddie's best man, Erin, of course, catches the bouquet. Speaking of Erin, she visited Sam regularly while he was serving his time in prison. Sam seemed to look forward to their talks, as she would give him updates on Eddie, Susan, and the rest of their friends. Of course, Erin looked forward to these visits as well, and she wondered if she and Sam would continue talking this often once he was released. Once Sam is finally a free man again, he has a laundry list of things he needs to do in every single world. Aaron is outside ready to meet him upon his release, sipping the mug before him with the words, "World's Best Sidekick" on it. It doesn't take much to convince Sam to allow her to accompany him on his adventures, hopping once again from world to world, seeking answers to unanswered questions. After all, somebody needs to make his coffee for him just the way he likes it, right? Throughout it all, Erin just has one unanswered question that she truly cares about. Maybe after spending so much time partnered with Sam again like old times, the mystery of who they are will finally be solved, too.
Yes, honey.
The world of comedy. With their newfound freedom, the Todds break out of their video game prison in search of a new life for themselves in the other worlds. The vast majority of them end up in one of two places. The first place being Gourmet City. Considering how Sous Vide's world is one of the food-based creatures, having the Todds there was a natural transition. In fact, a large force of them end up being recruited as Sous Vide's new superhero team known as HELP, the heroic eggplant lead for the people.
Yes.
Thanks to their help, Sous Vide is able to take more breaks from fighting crime on a weekly basis. After using the gold he got from Black Powder to help pay for his debts, Dr. Gambani actually takes our hero's advice and decides to use all of his doctorates to actually find a job. More on that later. He and Princess Tangerine also have a shotgun wedding, and together they end up with 11 kids. Clementine, Pomelo, Citron, Mandarin, Meyer, Valencia, Yuzu, Kiyomi, Surachi, Calamansi, and Bob.
Sure, why not? Bob.
All of those citruses.
Right? All the citruses.
And Bob.
And Bob.
Each kid receives their own flying copter ships and becomes mini-bosses in World 1.
Right.
Lotto will erect a memorial for his father, Bruce the Spruce, before making it his mission to find his grandfather, the real Dan the Man. Easier said than done, as even our heroes had not discovered a reliable way of jumping out of their own storybook into the Athenaeum proper. But Lotto is a resilient edgelord with all the time in the world.
World of children's books. As much as she enjoyed her adventures with Lonic, Bee is so happy to return back to Poppy Street. With the help of Blarney the Dragonzor, she mounts over to the fireplace the tiny new chainsaw she randomly received as a power-up prize inside Reginald's sweet grenade of many things at Sous Vide Sensation restaurant. She figured it would make her a nice souvenir, as well as a memory she had during that time. That was certainly one of the most educational experiences she had to date. Okay. Do you remember when I said the majority of Todds from Lonic's world ended up in two locations? Well, the second one was Bee's world, since they're naturally E for everyone. The Todds felt right at home in the warm and fuzzy new place. Irma, Grado, Tom, Mick, and Mary easily befriended the Todds. The gummy creature welcomed them with ooey gooey gummy worms, and Gusto offered to help keep the monster away from under their beds. Oh, I love it. And do you remember Dr. Gambani? He ended up on Poppy Street too. Okay. Where was I? Okay, Mr. Miyagers helped him get a job in the library, of course. And on weekends, Dr. Gambani would play bridge with Granny and Otis the Grump. Otis and Dr. Gambani hit it off very quickly.
In particular.
And that is the tale of how multiple stories converge together to form a harmonious epic. And the best part is, this is far from the end of the tales they will continue to tell moving forward. No matter who you are, everyone has a story. Everyone has something to say. So, be sure to tell your story and share what you need to express. Stories come in numerous forms, from books to movies to video games and beyond. Some are passed down from generation to generation. Some try to teach a lesson or impart wisdom. Some impart a deep emotion within you. And some are role-played on the spot among multiple players around the tabletop game on Zoom. But even if the characters of such stories are fictional, how real they are truly are ultimately up to you. And although this chapter, the 8th chapter of Stories, is at its end, there are still 2 more major chapters left to come. And perhaps by then, we will truly unravel the rest of the secrets of the place that started it all, the Athenaeum.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
One more time.
Give my eyes a minute to rest, and yes, we can do it all over again.
Athon, he probably has some sort of private quarters at Weishaupt, considering he's overseeing the
Yes.
Griffin breeding program.
Yes.
I'm going to say that Pasha has decided to head to Weishaupt to visit him. Kind of a surprise visit. He's probably not necessarily expecting her, but she's decided to head over there anyway.
Okay.
I think it would be later on in the day. Like she popped over quite early, maybe made him some breakfast. You know, something
Okay.
cute like that. You know, knock on the door. He's expecting a servant, and it's like, hey, breakfast.
Okay. Sure.
And she's kind of been with him for most of the day. It's later on in the evening.
Gotcha. So you basically have had breakfast together, you've been catching up, etc., etc. How much time has passed since you last saw each other?
I can't see Pasha ever letting it get to like a month or something
Okay.
like that. But
Yeah.
like I'm gonna say it's been at least like a week and a half, 2
Okay.
weeks, getting on the longer end of things.
I'm assuming they still send messages
Oh,
to
yeah.
each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Physically, where do you see them right now when this conversation begins?
In their room. In
their
their
room.
room.
Perfect. Okay.
The sound of baby griffins in the background cawing.
In the background, cawing.
Scrabbling.
Right. Maybe his window like overseas.
Yeah.
So he can actually like peek out and just make sure, hey, get off of that or whatever. Yeah, so I guess Athon would just probably say, my dear, I'm so happy you surprised me for a visit. It's always a joy and pleasure to be able to catch up and hear about your adventures, and I hope that I've been able to entertain you with various stories about the new brood that have been coming in as of late.
Oh, Athon, it is always a pleasure. A pleasure to hear you talk about your work here. I am sorry that I've been away for so long. Things they've been getting on top of me recently. The business and the Qun.
Hopefully it hasn't been too overwhelming. Hopefully the work has been fulfilling and you're still feeling that you've been doing good work and impactful work.
It certainly is fulfilling, and I do feel like I'm making a difference, but I hope you don't mind, but I was hoping to speak to you about this. You see, as of late, it's not that I'm dissatisfied or anything. However, I feel like things are calming down. Things are becoming more stable, and when things are right, I don't know if they are now. I would like your input on that. But when things are right, I think I'd like to step away for a little bit. Not from you, not from us, but
Okay.
just
Yeah, there was that moment in your face where his face like, where is she going with this? Like, oh.
with you by my side, of course. But I think I'd like to step away from the Kuhn and from the bakery, which I love. But again, I think I might have put a little bit too much on my plate, rather.
I can understand the Kuhn, but I must admit I'm very surprised that you would step away from the bakery, of all things.
I do love my sweets, but I think I'd like an adventure for the two of us, and I'd like to bring Vala and Enna with us. I couldn't bear to be apart from any of the three of you, and I'd like to go somewhere new, somewhere different.
He absorbs everything you're saying, and then he thoughtfully, puts a hand on his chin, and then he says, first question, adventure, is something wrong? Is there something that you need to look into?
No. I think Pasha was just smiling, although there is something wrong. It's a good-natured smile. It's not I'm laughing at you. She's shaking her head. No, nothing is wrong per se. But I think I have a tendency of spreading myself too thin, of trying to manage and oversee things. It's what I was trained to do. I'm a Tamazran. We oversee, we manage, and I'd just like something for myself, to do something where there's no one else except for yourself and Vala and Victory, and maybe some other smaller footsteps in the future, but...
So, a vacation then? You want to go off somewhere just to disconnect, and perhaps you don't trust yourself to want to go back, so you want to pull yourself away as much as possible, so you're not tempted to go back to managing things again. Is that what you're saying?
Something like that. Yes, a while ago, over a year ago, we must have told you the library, the large library.
Yes.
That is. There were so many books, so many worlds, so many new horizons and sunrises and sunsets to see, and I want to see them. I want to see as many of them as I can, and I'd like you to be there with me.
Exploring other strange new worlds. I have to admit, the idea of it is very intriguing. But if I left, what about the Griffins? I would have to make sure that I could find somebody to ensure that they're well taken care of before I left.
Exactly. That's why I'm not saying this should be immediate. I want your input on this. I don't want to make a decision for the both of us. If it's not something you're comfortable with, then obviously we won't. Once everything is settled, once you can sort everything out, once the Griffins are in a place where Victory and Vala can come with us and there won't be any negative repercussions, once the Kuhn is in a place where it won't fall apart or start waging war on everything else, then...
Do you know of a way to go back to the library?
My magic doesn't come from here. My magic comes from someone out there, from the wizarding world. And it's... I describe it as a pull. A line, almost. I think, if I focus in on it, I think maybe I could follow it back. Maybe.
And from what you've said to me before, that person may want their magic back, and therefore may be pulling for you on the other end. So in theory, it could just be a matter of you meeting them halfway. Interesting. Second question. If we were to find our way to the library, would we have a way to come back here if we wanted to?
I'm not entirely sure. It could be as simple as finding our book, and there was a gentleman, Toby. If he could put us back in before, I think he might be able to do it again. I'm not entirely sure, but I can't guarantee that we would return. That would be...
I see. Well, how about the others? Have you talked to the others about this? To the other gods, to Salit, to anyone, really? Even people like Darren or Prince Nathan?
I haven't, because to be very blunt, I think they'd tell me not to do it. And, I'm not going to lie. I want to be selfish. I want something for myself.
See. Like, I can clearly see that you've given this a lot of thought. I can't imagine how weighted of a decision this must be for you. If you would allow me to make the decision easier, yes, of course, I would love to come with you. I have a feeling neither Valor or Inesaline would be opposed either. I'm sure they're raring for an opportunity to spread their wings and soar into new heavens as well. It sounds risky, but if I was being honest, there isn't anything specific tying me here other than yourself and the Griffins. So yes, my answer is yes. So the question then becomes the timing, making sure that all of our affairs are settled. But then, does that mean that you're not going to say anything to anyone else? We're just going to leave without saying goodbye?
I did not intend on saying goodbye. To some of my children, I might say farewell. I do so hate goodbyes, especially to them.
Well, whatever you decide, just do whatever you believe you would be able to live with without any regrets. If you want to leave without saying anything, if you would at least like to deliver a message to be received by the other person once you're gone, just so that you maybe could sleep better at night knowing that you at least said something before you left. I support whatever you decide you can live with.
That is a good idea, Athon. This is why I speak to you. You have good ideas.
Well, when your day-to-day is looking after griffins and other beasts, you find a lot of time to yourself. As great of a conversation as I can have with Valor and the others, sometimes you have a good opportunity to just really be in your thoughts and contemplate.
Well, maybe you'll have less time in the future for contemplating. Maybe your schedule will get a little busier.
My last reaction was possible other little footsteps, he says.
Pasha looks very bashful, and she says, I'm not saying I am. You know that aspect it's very difficult for me, but I've never had a biological child of my own. And I know that's something you want. And I think I'd like to raise a child under brighter skies.
I think you've more than proven that you would be more than capable of raising a child of our own. I think that he, she, they would have a lot of shoes to fill, considering previous children. We can definitely talk more on that as things progress. Nothing needs to be set in stone.
I was going to say Pasha. Pasha will just run and hug him and give him a big ol' smooch. And just, I think she's just going to put her forehead against his. And she's just going to say, I don't want to make this decision for us. We will go at your pace. When you think you are ready, I am ready.
I appreciate that. As I said, let me find the proper successor. Once I'm confident that they will be able to continue on and have the confidence that they will treat the creatures properly and make sure they have the authority to ensure that the creatures continue to be treated properly. The last thing we would want would be to have something that would cause the extinction of these creatures a second time. For you know that Thetis' track record, they have a habit of repeating history quite often.
They do. They do.
Well, I think that we're at accord then. 2 new adventures and whatever we have to look forward to together.
New adventures, my dear.
He'll smile and he'll pull you in just to hug you again. And all I'll say is that when you're pulling, you'll hear a "Rah!" coming from the window, and you'll see both Valor and a ginger griffin like poking their heads through the window, and Athon is just gonna sigh and says, "This is a very private moment. Mommy and Daddy are talking."
Nice. Nice.